Good night, everybody. I'm meteorologist Nicholas Herboso.
Or good morning. I'm Chief Meteorologist Jason Smith.
Yeah, so we're here going to give you a little live update on Francine, what is now a tropical storm, as it is rolling its way inland at this point and getting sheared to pieces, let me tell you. So, hello, I'm still talking over there. I've got the Facebook live stream pulled up right next to me so we can see comments, and we're excited to answer your questions. I see a few people tuning in already, and a couple of questions coming down the Facebook stream, so please ask your questions, and we're going to get right to it.
Yes, so this system made landfall as a 100-mile-per-hour Category 2 storm near Terrebonne Parish about 5 o'clock this evening, and it has weakened considerably. It's now a tropical storm, and we expect it to just crumble as it moves to the north up into Mississippi overnight tonight. And at its current time, it's 12:44, and so by the time we finish this update, we're likely going to get the 1 o'clock advisory from the National Hurricane Center. I expect a continuation of the reduction of the winds, because if you look at the map in the middle between me and Nicholas, you can see that there's that little symbol spinning, and then all the clouds are away from that symbol, and that's that shear we expected at landfall. Nicholas.
And it has really taken this thing apart. We saw the forecast models tear this thing apart, but not this much. I mean, the whole entire core has been ripped to shreds and now pushed over our area. It was funny, we were joking about it earlier. It was like, this thing is supposed to be moving north, but it kind of looks like it's not. It kind of looks like it's moving our way. That's because the whole mid-level and upper-level part of it got shaved off.
It did, and it's putting some heavier rain over in our area right now. We are noting some heavier downpours moving into Mobile, and with that, we've seen some wind gusts up to tropical storm force. And so we are also monitoring tide gauges, and so we're seeing rising tide levels as well. And I expect the coastal flooding element to this to peak tomorrow morning around 7 a.m., and there are likely going to be some roads that are flooded out in the typical flood-prone areas like the Causeway and also the Dolphin Island Causeway, Shell Belt Road, and the State Docks. And I think I just lowered our...
Yeah,
I hope you guys didn't see that.
You saw my monitor went down? That was funny.
Anyway, so I got to be careful what buttons I push here. But anyway, I do expect some coastal flooding tomorrow morning. The tropical storm portion of this, as far as our impacts, is what we expected. That's happening right now.
Yeah, and it is going to be moving away from us. And taking a look now, the forecast track for Francine going to be continuing to weaken here as it moves to the north. Believe it or not, as it gets closer towards North Mississippi and gets into Arkansas, Tennessee, it is actually going to stall out and hang out for a little bit. We'll take a look.
I'm going to stop pressing buttons, I promise. I'll just keep my hands behind my back.
Hold on, let me pull it. Jason's over here pressing every... Okay, there we go.
Yep.
I think we're good now. We're going to be watching this thing stall out actually over Tennessee, and it's going to be an interesting satellite picture once it gets to that point. We'll look at some of those forecast models in a second. So I do want to take a look at the overall impact summary once again. We've been showing this pretty much all day here on Fox 10, and the summary has been there's a few things that are top of priority. Tornado risk, a tropical storm wind risk, a surge risk, and also a flooding risk, and also rip currents. Those are a few things that we're talking about.
Yeah, and so we're under a tornado watch, but so far we haven't seen any sign of any significant rotation in our area, so it's been a good situation for us. This is in effect through about daybreak tomorrow morning, so we will continue to watch for the possibility of tornadoes. That may be a little bit more likely to the east across the Florida Panhandle. The reason why we haven't seen anything yet is there's a stalled front out in the Gulf, and so we're on the cool side of that. But as we get warm sectored, we're also seeing the dry slot wrapping in on the backside of Francine. So it'll be interesting to see if we actually do see that tornado threat materializing. You see some big thunderstorms well offshore of Orange Beach and Gulf Shores right now.
Yeah, so I mean, you got the center of Francine moving way over there. And we're talking about the dry slot. There's drier air that's moving in behind this. That's why I'm drawing the arrows right now. And we have this one main band that we're dealing with, and that's the main band. That is the Francine right now. That's the most of the punch with Francine at this point, and there seems to only be I mean, you can see this down here, there seems to only be one major thunderstorm that is associated with this band. It's way down there. It's producing lots of lightning though, which is interesting, and these will be tracking off to the north. We're going to be watching the Florida Panhandle later on this morning for the potential of these bands moving on shore and possibly some of the stronger thunderstorms associated with this band moving on shore. So that's something we're going to be watching there.
Yeah, and right now we're getting some moderate to heavy rain in Mobile, but once we get through this band, it may start breaking up some. So our heaviest wind and rain in Mobile is going on right now here at about 10 minutes until 1. And then, of course, we're going to look at some modeling here. This will gradually shift across Baldwin County. There'll be more rounds that come in around Pensacola and across the Florida Panhandle overnight. And with that, the winds are going to start shifting and becoming more southerly, and that's what could drive up our tide levels. We're already starting to see that on some of the gauges out there, but you're just switching back and forth with reflectivity and velocity. Reflectivity shows us rainfall, velocity shows us rotation, and there's just not any major rotation going on. And it kind of looks like this band that we're watching that's offshore that's really convective is kind of linear in nature, meaning it's kind of oriented north to south. So we'll see how that plays out. Once you start getting in the east and southeast quadrant, tornadoes are a little less likely than they are in the northeast quadrant of a tropical system as it's making landfall.
I'm going to tell you, looking at some of the comments there. So overall, to summarize, the tornado threat is, Sophia, is Sib's going to get a tornado. Our tornado threat is very low right now. And I think the highest threat, as Jason just mentioned, would be in the far eastern half of our area as the bigger thunderstorms that you see here on radar that are over the Gulf right now start to come in. But right now, this is, I hate to say underperformed, but it struggled to get together.
And that's good. I mean, we don't want to see any more than what we already had. We got some gusty winds out there tonight. Winds up around 40 miles per hour with some gusts, possibly a little higher. Wind impacts are going to be really limited across our area.
And tell you what, actually in the last little bit, that yellow area is the tropical storm force winds. They have trimmed that back from what it was. Earlier, the bay was included. Now it looks like, and this is a product from National Weather Service, National Hurricane Center, Hurricane Threats and Impacts. Great product to use. It's really simple to look at. Anywhere in that yellow area, that tropical storm force sustained wind is possible, and you see they've even trimmed that back. So our Mississippi counties, part of Washington County, I will say the tropical storm gusts are definitely possible.
Yeah, we've seen that downtown at Brookley Field, which is right on the edge of the bay. The winds are out of the east, so kind of unimpeded to see the wind coming into that particular location. We've had winds at about 30 miles an hour with gusts of 40. It's not been as high at Mobile Regional Airport. You can see right now 21 miles an hour out of the east.
Yeah, that's the sustained wind, and I actually wanted to pull up, this is Mobile Regional and Mobile downtown. 21 east at 21 and downtown east at 29. So nothing crazy. I'll mention there were a few comments about street flooding out there, because that might be happening with the heavier rain that we're seeing right now in Mobile. So that's a good point there. I want to take a look offshore here. 31 gusting to 38.
Still east at Orange Beach too. That buoy is about what, 15 miles south?
Yeah, 15 nautical miles.
So this Orange Beach buoy, we still got a due east wind. It has not shifted out of the south or east southeast yet. That's going to happen as the circulation moves onshore more. The streamline's showing that it should be a little bit more east southeast right now.
Yeah, that's. I'm wondering if that's a local effect from a thunderstorm or something. We'll go back to radar in a second. But so here's the winds across the area right now. Gulf Shores out of the east at 24. This is sustained winds right now. 22 out of the southeast in Pascagoula. 21 at Mobile Regional Airport. So these winds are not crazy. No, not at all. So it's going to be a breezy night. There's going to be some rain, but right now I'm not. The impacts have not been very significant. Wind gusts, they're getting up there slowly.
Yeah, we're looking at Dolphin Island right now. We've got a wind gust of 38 knots, so that's about 45 miles an hour or so, 44 miles an hour. It is a southeast wind at Dolphin Island, so we are getting some wind shift out there in some places. And as wind comes around more out of the south, that's what's going to start driving our tides up, along with the pull of the sun and the moon. It's a strong tide for tomorrow morning, according to the tide calendar.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because I want to go ahead and pull up the forecast wind gust. This is the National Weather Service wind gust. It's way overdone, but I think you can get the idea of when the peak is. It's in the morning, right around 4 a.m. there is when we get our strongest wind gusts. And then notice through the day on Thursday, it pulls back. Wind gusts to 20 at 6 p.m. on Thursday might even be a bit much, according to this forecast. I think I have a different forecast model pulled in here.
I expect it to be a breezy day tomorrow, but I don't expect it to be a situation where we're having horrific winds. But you'll definitely notice something's up when you wake up tomorrow.
Yeah, and they've issued a wind advisory for a good chunk of our counties tomorrow, just to account for that. Here's the timing. This is a better model. I think this is a more realistic interpretation, and I think it's more realistic because you can kind of tell where that band is on it, because you see, and I'll I'll point it out on the map. There's this area of the darker colors here where the stronger winds are. That's associated with that band of thunderstorms that's moving through with Francine that we saw on the radar. So behind that, you might have some periods of weaker gusts. Then you might have some periods where gusts push 40 miles per hour, push tropical storm force. 6 a.m., things are starting to wind down. And I think through the day on Thursday, things wind down. And I'll be honest, probably we get to see some periods of sunny skies there. Look at the wind direction, though, on Thursday, out of the south and then getting out of the south and west. And that is going to be pushing water on shore. Here's that storm surge forecast. And you can see the peak surge in our area would be around 2 to 4 feet. So coastal flooding, as we mentioned earlier, in the typical spots will be possible there.
Yeah, and right now, Waveland Yacht Club showing tides running about 3 feet above normal on the Mississippi coast. And so it's possible that places like Bala Battery and Alabama Port will see tides in that range too. Dolphin Island, I'm thinking a little closer to 2 to 3 feet, but we could be up into that 3+ feet in the bayou. We've got to watch around the mouth of Dog River, the normal flood-prone areas with the possibility of some storm surge. It will be lower across the Panhandle, but we'll still see above average tides in the morning.
Yeah, and I'll also mention that the surf is going to be rough at the beaches too. There, and we've actually
for days. Yeah.
Yes, and we've already seen some beach erosion. I've seen some comments about that. We have a coastal flood warning that's been issued. A significant coastal flooding. When we say that, the causeway is going to flood, and I think that's going to be larger impact there. This is a pretty detailed map. I'll take this full screen for us so we can actually see it. This is a very detailed map to show what potential storm surge could be. It's not perfect, but it gives you an idea of certain places that could flood. Let's go kind of near Pascagoula in South Mobile County, where you can see your typical places, your low-lying places will be the places that do flood. South Mobile County. It doesn't show this. West End, Dolphin Island.
Right. The water's coming over on the west end. I mean, there's no question about it, with the surf being so rough that it's a wind-driven tide. I also want to tell you that we've got the new advisory down, the 1 a.m. advisory on Francine. It is a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm now. So as we were saying, as Nicholas was telling you, it's getting sheared apart. 50-mile-per-hour system. It's moving northeast at 14, pressure up to 988. So this thing is basically falling apart. But we still are going to see significant impacts overnight tonight with rising water levels on the coast. And then, of course, we're going to watch these thunderstorms with the possibility of tornadic development.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll be watching but I think one of the biggest impacts, of course, will be the causeway flooding, because that will be likely during peak tide, peak rush hour time on Thursday morning. People are going to be trying to get out. So causeway is probably not going to be an option tomorrow morning. Just keep that in mind. Might even see a little bit of coastal flooding on the eastern shore there in the very typical low-lying spots. So here's the big picture right now. We just got that new advisory once again. So what was it? Winds 50 miles per hour now. This storm is definitely coming down. Look at the radar loop over the past hour or so. The core
is gone.
I mean, completely gone.
Wow.
We saw that on satellite too. Right now, the main thing is that larger band. So what you need to expect overnight, periods of heavy rain, definitely. We actually, shockingly, still have this flood watch. We've been dry, and rainfall totals, we're not expecting them to be that high.
Yeah, it takes more rain this time of the year. I mean, the trees and all are drawing the moisture out of the ground, so the ground is not saturated. The evaporation rate's pretty high. There are some flood warnings to our west, but in our area, I think it's going to be a smaller rainfall situation.
Yeah, I did want to show this. I pulled this in. This is some of the rainfall totals in Louisiana, and you look at places like Kenner, where you're pushing 9 inches, and you go even further to the west, almost 10 over Lake Pontchartrain there. Near Mandeville, around 7.5 to 8 inches. So they got all the rain. That was near the core of the storm. Look at us. We haven't even hit an inch.
We haven't hit an inch. Maybe this band will do it moving across Mobile Regional Airport right now. So we may end up with just like a 2-inch rainfall total, something like that. And, you know, we can handle that. So the main issues, the reason why the water level is going to be rising near the coast is coastal flooding because of tide and wind. It is not really related at all to the amount of rainfall we're seeing.
All right, so let's, as I was about to get into for a second, it was, what are we expecting overnight? You see this forecast model gets lively with that big band that we were showing on radar earlier. So around 4, 5, 6 a.m. we'll be watching in the Panhandle, see if those thunderstorms get active. But notice how quickly on Thursday things clear out. I mean, we could see sunshine.
Definitely, we are getting that dry slot. That's 7 a.m. and so we might see some sunshine along with really breezy conditions and higher than normal tides. And we go through the day, that boundary is going to keep shifting over into Walton County. So I really don't see a ton of rain during the day tomorrow. What we're going to deal with, the main brunt of this is going to be tonight from a rainfall perspective and any kind of severe weather possibilities. Then tomorrow we'll start to see clearing. The Panhandle, we still may have some active weather. Of course, Nicholas is planning on being here through the morning show tomorrow. That
Yes.
may be interesting just to tune in to watch to see how well he's holding up. Meteorologist Matt Barentine will be here too, and he should be rested and ready.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We've been running at full gear. I mean, full gear over the past few days.
I mean, that's what we do. You know, anytime there's a tropical system, we know it's a big deal for everybody, and we're passionate about it. So it's going to be some extra hours, but we like doing it, and that, you know, we can be here. So if we get a tornado warning, you'll have somebody you can tune in. You know, we're going to be on air with any information that's important.
So some of the comments, and I'm running through these futurecast models. There's a couple different versions of it. The HRRR was a little slow. I was kind of surprised by that. But running through these, you can see on Thursday everything's fine. To address a couple of the comments, Leakesville, Mississippi, you're going to get some breezy conditions, especially over the next little bit here. This is our graph model. You're closer towards that center of the storm. All of our Mississippi counties closer to the center of the storm, so it will be breezy overnight. You might have some sprinkles, some periods of rain. I think that's about it.
Right, yeah, we got a pretty good little shower down around Lucedale right now. It's coming up 63. That might bring some gustier winds to Leakesville, but you're also further inland, which will mitigate the wind potential.
Yes, for Mobile, rain and wind. That's the story. In fact, some of the heaviest rain occurring right now.
Yeah.
We'll see over the next few hours as the winds peak. I think in the morning we could get some more gusty conditions just as the pressure gradient gets tighter and things keep going. But otherwise, things will be clearing rather quickly on Thursday. A place like Pensacola, by Thursday afternoon, you have the chance of seeing partly sunny skies, maybe even mostly sunny skies at that point. I think we end the day Thursday rather nice, breezy, quiet, kind of almost, dare I say, pleasant on Thursday.
Yeah, and Friday looks good. You know, they're getting into the weekend. We're going to recover from this very quickly. Not that I'm expecting a lot of damage, but I mean, the weather conditions are going to improve rapidly, and we'll start to see things calming down. And maybe by Saturday, the Gulf may calm down a little bit.
Yeah, you notice in this model, there's still a lot of spin there. I mentioned the system stalls out. This forecast model tries to bring the remnant spin of this thing over, which would just mean same thing. We'd have a few clouds around, a couple showers, and that's about it.
Right.
Now, I want to go back to radar one more time before we wrap this thing up. Here's what's going on right now. And ask your questions in the comments here. And let me double check the YouTube comments as well, make sure. Let's see. I think we're good here. So Fort Morgan might be interesting. You're getting rough surf out there. It's raining right now.
Yeah, we're getting some rain moving in across the it looks like far out on the tip, maybe not quite as bad, but we're definitely looking at some downpours. Yeah, we're definitely getting some downpours there and all the way to Little Lagoon. So stormy night, no doubt about it. And that wind shifted out of the southeast down at Fort Morgan now.
Okay, so, and I was going to say, we during the newscast, we even had a little bit of lightning. So don't be surprised if you hear some thunder overnight. Checking in a couple other areas, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, you're getting some of the heavy rain. None of these things are spinning right now. So it's just the rain, just the wind at this moment. A similar story for Fairhope and Daphne. In the morning, once you get towards Daphne, Spanish Fort, right on the eastern shore, we'll keep an eye out for any coastal flooding issues, especially, of course, when we get to the causeway. I think the causeway tomorrow morning might have some issues. We've said that about 1,000 times.
I would be surprised. I would be almost shocked if we didn't have water across the causeway.
So, and of course, Aldot, we've been talking about it all day. Aldot is prepared for that. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, Bila Battery is a solid 1 foot above normal of the normal high tide, and it's climbing rapidly. I think we're heading to about 3 feet above normal in Bila Battery before it's all said and done.
So definitely coastal. I mean, I'll take the radar down there.
Shell Belt Road, you know, the usual spots, the state docks, Marshall's Marine area, likely going to see pretty significant tide. tomorrow morning.
And I mean, as you've been saying this all day, it is because that we are already having a stronger tide on top of the onshore flow that we're already getting.
Right, yeah, tides are not always at a certain level high and low. Sometimes there's very little difference between the high and low tide. That's what we call a neap tide. And then sometimes we have a really strong tide range. And when we get close to the spring and autumnal equinoxes, we normally have stronger tides, and we're in that range right now. And so peak tide tomorrow morning is already astronomically high, and then we're going to add storm surge on top of that.
Tornado watch for Baldwin County. Yes, that does continue, but right now nothing is spinning. So just keep the phones on just in case, but I'm really not seeing much at this moment.
No, that's good.
This is a go to sleep with the phone on.
Right.
I was talking, this is sleeping weather.
Right.
This really is kind of sleeping
Sure.
weather. It's not bad at all. You just have to have that phone on. Make sure you can get an alert if something does pop up, if something is out there. I saw another comment that I wanted to.
And most of the tornadoes that form around a tropical system are EF0s and EF1s. They're not usually super strong tornadoes, and they can be very brief. They can spin up very quickly, they can move very quickly, but they're not normally just devastating tornadoes like you see in central and northern Alabama or in our area in the spring season.
This is interesting. Power is out by the Wilcox exit. Even if it's gusty, and whenever we get 35 mile per hour gusts, occasionally I feel like that's always a possibility. So I wouldn't be, like I think we said this earlier, I would not be surprised if we have a couple power outages. I don't think they'll last long. This is not something where it gets to the tropical storm strength and the winds are too strong for power crews to go out. This is not
right.
that bad.
Yeah, and there's no lightning, so it might be helpful for those that do have isolated power outages for them to get the power back on if we see that.
So once again, to kind of review, coastal Mississippi, southern Mobile County, Causeway, Dauphin Island, our concern right now and heading into the morning is the coastal flooding issue. We're already seeing tide gauges registering higher and higher by the minute. And this will continue as we keep on with the onshore flow. Eastern shore, the low-lying areas, like if you go down to the municipal pier, you're on the beach, the water might be up a little bit, waves might be crashing tomorrow morning. It might be cool tomorrow morning to head down to the pier. But otherwise, I don't think we have any issues for school. The question, how much longer till it's over? By the time we get towards the morning hours, and I mean later morning hours on Thursday, it is wrapping up for places like Mobile. We're starting to see sunshine come out. It'll still be breezy. Pensacola, Fort Walton Beach, Destin, Navarre, it's going to take a little longer, but then it'll just be working out there, checking on how things are going.
Yeah, I have a little property down on the coastline, and there's water up in the yard.
Oh, there is definitely.
So that's going to be not far away from the Grand Bay Reserve area by La Battery.
So we're definitely seeing the coastal flooding happening now. So if you're right on the coast, you would already know that it would be happening, but of course, places right there. A couple other reminders with that coastal flooding tomorrow and over the next few days, we have that rough surf, high risk of rip currents. There's no need to get in the water. We had some issues with that today. I think the National Weather Service was kind of tweeting out on social media and putting it out on social media like, you cannot be in the water, you cannot be in the water. That's something that we pushed really hard. Yeah,
and a lot of folks were trying to go out and do some surfing today. It was really messy. There will be better surfing opportunities once this thing kind of passes, and then you just have real better wave periods and a better swell.
Yeah.
But for just swimming, no, not until probably Saturday.
Yeah, no,
and then maybe not then.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a little time because especially if the low lingers around. Flooding. Right. A couple inches of rain, not too worried. We'll see if any of these happen to stick over the same area for a long time. Wind, as I mentioned, gusty conditions mostly in the western half of our area, peaking in the pre-dawn hours and then starting to fade through the day on Thursday. Sunshine comes out on Thursday. I'm trying to think if there's any other impacts. This is a tropical storm, guys.
Yeah, a hurricane hit Louisiana, but it's a tropical storm here. We're going to keep an eye on it overnight here on Fox 10 News. If we see anything that looks tornadic, we'll break in and let you know. And you can tune in for our morning show tomorrow morning for a full update. And I think you'll see just how high the tide is in some places with our live reports.
Yes, we got plenty of live coverage coming your way. We thank you for joining us. Hey, we'll keep an eye out on the social media channels for any questions. But for now, we're going to just take a break, and we'll keep an eye on things here at Fox 10.
Have a great night.